There is a kind of woman that the world has never quite known how to hold. She is too feeling for the ones who fear depth, too knowing for the ones who fear truth, too luminous for the ones who have forgotten what light even looks like. You have felt it, haven't you? That something in you that refuses to be made small, that something that rises quietly, powerfully, even after every attempt to dim it, especially after every attempt to dim it. This is not a video about strength in the way the world defines it. This is something far older than that, far deeper than anything a single lifetime could contain, because what is awakening inside you right now, what has been pressing against the surface of your life like dawn pressing against a horizon, is not new. It is ancient, it is remembered. It is you, finally, fully arriving. If something in you already recognizes what I'm describing, if your chest expanded slightly just reading these words, type "I am rising" in the comments. Let that be your declaration. Not to anyone else, to yourself. And if this transmission is already finding the places in you that needed finding, let the frequency know by pressing like. Now, let's go somewhere true. Long before you had this body, before you chose this name, this face, this particular shade of pain, you existed as something extraordinary, not fragile, not uncertain, not in need of permission from anyone. You existed as a being of such profound awareness that the councils of the higher realms listened when you spoke. There is a body of wisdom recovered not from ancient texts, but from the deepest, most unguarded layers of the human soul. Thousands of voices speaking from beyond the veil of ordinary memory, all returning with the same astonishing truth. Women who awaken spiritually are not becoming something new. They are remembering something eternal before this life began, in that luminous space where the soul sits in full knowledge of everything it is. You understood something that this world has spent centuries trying to make you forget, that the feminine is not the lesser force, it is the original one. The same recovered memories speak of it in language that sends chills through the rational mind. They describe the feminine soul as a keeper of thresholds, a guardian of the space between worlds, the one who holds the knowing when the knowing becomes too vast for words. Think about what you have always been able to do that no one ever taught you. The way you have walked into a room and felt its entire emotional history before a single word was spoken. The way you have known, truly known in your bones, that something was wrong long before any evidence arrived. The way grief moves through you not as something to be fixed, but as something to be witnessed, and in the witnessing, transformed. That is not weakness dressed up as sensitivity. That is an ancient instrument doing precisely what it was designed to do. You were not built for the surface of things. You were built for depth, for the underneath, for the quiet, enormous truth that lives beneath every conversation, every relationship, every ordinary Tuesday that somehow contains the entire mystery of existence if you are willing to look. And the women who are awakening now, and there are more of you than you know, scattered across this planet like seeds, finally finding their season, they share something unmistakable. They have all passed through a particular kind of fire. Not the fire of disaster necessarily, though sometimes, yes, but the fire of finally stopping the performance, stopping the shrinking, stopping the ancient, exhausting habit of making themselves easier to digest for people who were never meant to understand this chapter of their story. Something breaks in that stopping. Something gloriously, necessarily breaks. And what is revealed beneath the breaking is not rubble. It is bedrock. The women who carry the deepest spiritual power are rarely the ones who never fell. They are the ones who fell so completely, so honestly, so without the armor of pretending, that when they rose from somewhere real, from the marrow of their own truth, from the quiet center that no storm had ever actually reached, even when every storm insisted otherwise. This is what the recovered wisdom calls the activation, not a single dramatic moment, though sometimes it arrives that way, but a slow, unstoppable process of the soul refusing to remain smaller than it actually is. You have been in this process, perhaps for months, perhaps for years. Perhaps your entire life has been one long, winding, sometimes agonizing, always purposeful preparation for exactly this moment of recognition. The recognition that what makes you powerful is not what you were told to hide. It is precisely what you were told to hide: your depth, your feeling, your knowing, your refusal to accept a shallow answer to a question your soul has been asking since long before this lifetime began. That is the power. That has always been the power, and it is waking up. There is something that happens when a woman stops apologizing for what she carries, not loudly, not dramatically, not with declaration or performance, but in the quiet, private interior of her own being. A door closes on an old story and something vast and unhurried steps forward. You have felt this beginning in you. Perhaps you couldn't name it. Perhaps you called it restlessness or dissatisfaction or that vague, persistent sense that the life you are living is wearing clothes that no longer fit, that were perhaps never truly yours to begin with. That feeling is not a problem. That feeling is a compass. The recovered wisdom speaks of this threshold with extraordinary tenderness. It describes the moment of spiritual activation in a woman not as an arrival from somewhere outside, not as something granted by grace or luck or divine selection, but as something that was always already there, folded inside her, waiting with the patience of something that has absolutely no doubt about its own eventual emergence, like a seed that does not panic in winter, like a tide that does not apologize for rising. And what emerges, what you are in the process of becoming right now in this season of your life, is something this world has a complicated relationship with. Because a woman who has fully stepped into her spiritual awakening does not ask for permission the way she once did. She does not shrink herself into shapes that make others more comfortable. She does not silence the knowing simply because the knowing is inconvenient for the people around her. And the world, the parts of the world still asleep, feels that, feels the shift in her, and does not always know what to do with it. You may have already noticed this, relationships that once felt solid, beginning to feel like ill-fitting garments, conversations that once satisfied now leaving a strange hollow in their wake, places, habits, identities you once wore with ease suddenly sitting on you like borrowed clothes that belong to someone you used to be. This is not loss, even when it feels exactly like loss. This is the soul reclaiming its actual shape, refusing the compressions of years, expanding back into its original dimensions, which are, without exception, far larger than anything the world told you were appropriate. The women who have walked through this, who have sat in the ruins of the identity they were assigned and chosen, consciously chosen, to build something true from the inside out. They describe something remarkable on the other side. Not a life without difficulty. Life will always bring difficulty, but a relationship to difficulty so fundamentally transformed that it becomes almost unrecognizable. Where once a challenge arrived as an attack, something to be defended against, survived, escaped, it now arrives as a question the soul finds genuinely interesting, a question that carries within it the precise medicine this particular moment of growth requires. That is power. Not the power of force, not the power of armor, but the power of a woman so rooted in her own truth that nothing that comes against her can reach the place where she actually lives. There is a specific quality that every deeply awakened woman carries. It is not loudness, it is not aggression, it is not the performance of strength for an audience that needs convincing. It is stillness, a particular kind of stillness that is not emptiness, but fullness, the stillness of a deep river that has no need to announce its own depth. You have met women like this, perhaps only briefly, perhaps only once, but you remember them because something in you recognized something in them, recognized it the way you recognize a language you have not spoken in a very long time, but have never, not once, actually forgotten. That recognition was a mirror. What you saw in her was a memory of yourself, of what you are, of what you have always been, of what is rising in you now, steadily, inevitably, beautifully, like a tide that has waited long enough, and it will not be stopped. Not by the voices that told you you were too much, not by the seasons that made you believe you were not enough, not by the years spent navigating a world that did not yet have the vocabulary for what you actually are. It will not be stopped, because it was never truly contained, only resting, only gathering itself for exactly this. So what does a woman do with a power this ancient, with an awakening this vast? Not what the world would suggest, not louder, not harder, not more, less, and deeper. Tonight, before you sleep, try this, not as a ritual borrowed from someone else's tradition, but as a homecoming, your homecoming. Find the stillest corner of your evening, after the last task is set down, after the last roll of the day has been gently, deliberately removed like a coat at the door. Sit. Just sit. Not in the posture of someone performing meditation, but in the posture of a woman who has decided for this one sacred pocket of time that she belongs entirely to herself. Place both hands over your heart and breathe not the controlled breath of discipline, but the natural, unhurried breath of something that has finally been given permission to simply be. And in that space, ask nothing, seek nothing, explain nothing, simply say inwardly, honestly, I am here, I am listening. Show me what I am ready to receive. And then become very, very quiet. Not the quiet of suppression, the quiet of expansion, the kind of quiet that has texture and warmth, the kind a woman finds when she stops translating herself for everyone else and begins, at last, to hear her own frequency. What comes may not arrive in words. It may come as a warmth in the chest that has no obvious explanation. It may come as a memory, not of this life, but of something older, a place, a knowing, a sense of home that this earth has never quite replicated, but that lives persistent and luminous, somewhere beneath all your ordinary days. Trust what comes, even if the mind immediately moves to dismiss it, even if the trained voice of practicality clears its throat and begins to explain why what you just felt cannot possibly mean what it felt like it meant. Trust it anyway. The spiritually awakening woman learns, and this is perhaps her most radical act, to trust the intelligence of her own interior over the noise of the exterior, not blindly, not without discernment, but with the deep settled confidence of someone who has finally understood that the knowing she was born with was never the problem. The doubting of it was. There is something else worth carrying into your days. Begin to notice where you give your energy with joy and where you give it out of fear, out of habit, out of the old inherited belief that your worth must be continuously earned through service, through smallness, through the endless exhausting proof that you deserve to take up space. You do not need to earn it. You never did. The places that drain you without filling you, those are not your assignments. Those are the remnants of an old contract that your soul has already quietly, firmly, lovingly canceled. You are allowed to let them go, not with bitterness, not with the need to explain yourself to those who will not understand, but with the simple, sovereign grace of a woman who knows that her energy is sacred, and she is finally ready to treat it that way. And on the mornings when the doubt returns, because it will return, as doubt always does, testing the new ground you are standing on, place your hands on your heart again, breathe, and remember, you are not learning to be powerful. You are remembering that you always were. That remembering is the practice. That remembering is the path. That remembering is enough. Before this transmission closes, before you return to the world that is still learning how to hold a woman like you, there is something that must be said, something that has perhaps been waiting your entire life to be said to you exactly like this. You were not too much. You were exactly enough for a world that was not yet ready to receive you. The sensitivity that was called weakness was perception. The emotion that was called instability was depth. The knowing that was called irrational was ancient intelligence moving through a human form that this lifetime never quite had the language to contain. And the power rising in you now, this quiet, unhurried, unstoppable force that no longer asks permission and no longer apologizes for taking up the space it was always meant to fill. This is not new. This is who you were before the world began its long work of convincing you otherwise. This is who you remained through every season that tested you, through every relationship that asked you to be less, through every room that went quiet when you walked in carrying more truth than the conversation could hold. You remained, even when remaining felt like barely surviving, even when you could not yet see that the surviving itself was a form of extraordinary power. You are not at the beginning of this. You are not behind. You are not broken or delayed or somehow less awakened than the woman beside you. You are exactly where your soul placed you, at exactly the right depth of exactly the right season of exactly the right lifetime to receive exactly this moment, this recognition, this remembering. The woman who watches this and feels something ancient stir, she is not discovering something foreign. She is finding her way back to something she set down a very long time ago in a world that did not yet know how to help her carry it. She is ready to carry it again now. You are ready. You did not find this message by accident. There are no accidents in a universe this precise, this loving, this exquisitely devoted to the awakening of every soul that agreed to come here and remember. Stay close. Subscribe, not as a follower of a channel, but as a woman choosing to continue the most important journey she has ever taken, the journey back to herself. Because what is coming next was made for exactly where you are going, and where you are going is home.